Hi there. Welcome back to the American Academy of Optometry Leadership Podcast. My name is Dr. Andrea Lasby, and I'm your host for this episode. We're going to talk about achievement and the importance of that on leadership. And today I am so thrilled to have with me Dr. Sophie Leung. Thank you so much for joining us. Sophie is a long-term friend of mine, but also her track record goes back so long. I could be introducing her from her accolades over and over, but Cole's notes, a brief introduction here is that she went to the University of Waterloo, where she graduated with an optometry degree, and then soon after found herself in private practice and was searching for more. And so she ended up going down to Oklahoma to do a residency in ocular disease, where she got great background in advanced scope. And then she followed that up by a fellowship. Now, not to be stopped there, she was one of the first diplomats of the American Academy of Optometry's anterior segment section. And then finally, right now, if that wasn't enough, she's currently doing her MBA and is wrapping that up in the next few months here. So welcome to the podcast. It's so great to have you.
Yeah, thank you. I always look forward to doing like chats. Yeah, I've known you for a while, so I was like, podcast, sign me up. So
yeah. So let's jump right in because we're going to talk about leadership today. And so can you just tell our listeners a little bit about what first sparked your interest in leadership?
Yeah, I think I kind of stumbled into it, to be honest. I think that maybe this is kind of like part of recovering imposter syndrome or something, but I kind of feel like I was this inadvertent go-getter. I kind of just, my parents taught me to try your best, do good work. And somewhere along the way, I think other leaders saw like, hey, she seems like she would work hard, get her on board. And then I think other times I also thought maybe there's just, this could be better or this doesn't seem right. And I just kind of stepped into these positions, not realizing at all that they were leadership positions. And then I just kind of kept doing it over and over again. Just there seemed to be work to be done. And that's sort of, where I landed, where I'm at now, pretty much.
Yeah. And sometimes it's not always that you're going to do it, right? It's going to be, I was in the right place at the right time and it just fell into my lap.
Yeah,
So
for sure.
I know that one of your Clifton strengths is an achiever. And that's all, if that's not obvious already. I know residency, fellowship, diplomat, MBA, I'm sure there's something next. You can't keep you down. So tell me a little bit about, right? So tell me a little bit about how that trait specifically has impacted your leadership goals.
Yeah, I think, it's funny because I know I score that way, but I think that I wonder if learner is more of a trait there. But I think it just came with the achievement because I happened to pick things that came with like stuff at the end. But I think that leaders have to be willing to learn, right? And I think if I look at the positions I'm in, I know that I have knowledge gaps, I have areas to grow, and any leadership work that I achieve is rarely, if ever, on my own. And I just know the skill set and the knowledge and wisdom. There's something about surrounding yourself with people who are smarter than you so you can learn and rise up, and then surrounding yourself with people who inspire you. And so I think leaders, and the way I see it is I have to be able to embrace that, and a willingness to share it as well, right? Because what good is it? Is it just in my head? If other people can maybe take some of my learnings and do good work there, and maybe we can do good work together. And I just kind of feel like that's just the way that I've been growing and operating, and kind of maybe it is the right place, right time, but I think also this willingness to just get after what I really know that I don't know, right?
Yeah. It's kind of like that whole saying, like a raising tide raises all ships, or a rising tide raises all ships, right?
Yeah,
So, by making yourself better, you can make others around you better too, which is great. How do you think, given that, you're now, you know so much about certain subjects, and then you're surrounding yourself by others who have maybe other, I guess, like strengths in other areas. How have you in your roles worked to get the best out of those that you work with?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think it's critical to do that, right? I think that one of the things that a really strong leadership technique that I've been working on developing, and honestly through my MBA, they kind of churn it out of you because they throw you into these groups, and you're with people of industries that I know nothing about, right? Things I didn't even know that these were jobs. And I think that learning how to do compassionate negotiating has been a critical way to get different viewpoints and different opinions, and bring it together and channel it for like a more powerful position as a group. And this is not in a combative or competitive way, but I think just being able to one, acknowledge that humans are humans first, right? That emotions can be complex and they can be powerful if they're wielded. But then also to be able to figure out what are our common goals, what's a worthy mutual goal, and then figure out what's worth keeping and what's worth conceding. And then I guess if I have the position to do that, to be able to make sure that the individuals know that I'm glad that they're at the table, that I'm glad that they're there because these discussions have to happen, and embracing those differences, because groupthink, echo chambers are rarely that helpful, really. And I think if I do get a chance to be on a team where there's lots of different strengths, then it's so critical actually to bring them up and let them know, whoever's there, that they really have a role there and a place to
Yeah.
be and kind of role to play.
Yeah, it's welcoming those different opinions and not necessarily always like adversarial, but like
Right.
let's look at it from the other side. Where are weaknesses here that we're not thinking of and where are our gaps? So I think that that's a really important role of a leader, as you mentioned, especially when you're trying to lead a team. It's not all about you, right? It's about the people around you.
Wrong, right? Like, to be willing to have your thoughts and your opinions changed by a really good point. So often I kind of feel like I don't always have an opinion until I hear everybody. I'm like, okay, I think now I've formed somewhere. And so, yeah, daring to be wrong is also, I think, something that, I'm wrong often, to be honest, and I think that actually is a good thing to acknowledge, to know that there are people who have opinions I should hear out, and then I can form a better opinion on something after that.
Yeah. And I mean, obviously, there's probably things that surprised you too that you're like, oh, I didn't think I'd learn that or didn't think I'd vote this way, but here I am now.
Yeah.
So, through your leadership journey, I guess overall, has there been something that surprised you? And how has it affected maybe your leadership, or what did you learn from that?
Yeah. Surprise. I always chuckle. I'm like, I don't know what, I am surprised why people follow me at all. But but I think one of the things that I'm surprised at is how challenging it is for me to let people come in and support and help. And then it's also surprising how well that works. Right. Like, I think I'm often so impressed when people come in and either I've delegated or they say, just let me take that off your plate and help, let me help you. And the work that's accomplished is so impressive, not because I didn't believe in the team, but because the product is just so much better than I could have imagined. Like, I think of our current board at the Alberta Association of Optometrists, all such strong council members, and the work that we've been able to accomplish is far beyond what I could have imagined or even pictured. And so I know that I can't do it on my own. And yet I have this like hyper independence that's like still in default somewhere, still kind of picking away at me. And I'm surprised at how hard it is to let go, even though I've seen time and time again how much leadership is never a solo sport. And so I'm still kind of waffling back and forth between that. I think when I'm more tired or close to burnout, which can happen, to the best of leaders, I think that I sort of default to this, okay, I'm going to do it all myself, not burden others. But it doesn't end well. And so I think I'm surprised at, I guess, how still I'm resistant to it, and then pleasantly surprised at how well it works when I do finally let go.
Yeah, yeah. And to humble brag, I mean, you are the president of the Alberta Association of Optometrists, which is very awesome. But I think that that's great. I think, when we take a look at, working with different teams and working on different boards and things like that, it can be hard, I think, for overachievers. Maybe you, agree with me. But overachievers to sometimes let go because, it is something you could probably do well, but so could the person next to you. And I think that that's something that can come hard to some leaders too, is that when can you say, maybe that's how I would have done it, but you're doing a great job and that's great. That's your thing. You take it.
Or
So I
that,
think that's
you're doing it
awesome.
so much better than I am. And I should have given you the mantle earlier, Yeah. So I think it goes both ways. But
Yeah.
yeah, that hyper independent
Yeah.
thing, I think is something we're still working on for sure.
So when you talk about like working on a board, for example, obviously like working with teams with differing ideas can be difficult. People are passionate about issues. So can you tell me about a technique that you found helpful to build teamwork and a common vision on teams that you've led in the past where maybe there are differing opinions?
Yeah, I think taking like an extra second to ask a clarification question, and almost like allowing your thought to be in the background. I found that to be really helpful, especially when there's a lot of tension, or if there's even like one or two vocal voices that are happening there. I think yeah, I think acknowledging that that voice is valid, and I think it's so critical to be able to to kind of listen first, and then speak, right? I always chuckle at like the Hamilton line, like talk less and smile more. Obviously, like it's not like we want to be able to do it in a way that it moves towards action and stance. But I do think that has been really helpful for me, because my assumptions can be wrong, right? And my assumptions for where they're coming from, and as I learn more, hear more, or ask for clarification, then I start to understand. Oftentimes it's more about, we talk about in the MBA or public health, like define the problem. What is the actual problem? What is the issue here? And it happens in practice, right, with patients, but it happens at the board level. It happens, with even talking to industry. Like, what is the actual issue? Like, what is the hurdle and what is the heart behind the matter? And I think that has often helped for differing opinions to arrive at a much better, acceptable kind of agreement or conclusion that may have, it looked very different at the beginning and kind of landed somewhere totally different, because the actual heart of the matter, heart of the issue didn't show up until a little bit more questioning.
Yeah, reframing it. And sometimes that takes a while to get to that, what that actual problem is, right?
Right. Yep.
So in terms of, let's say now you have a common vision, and then let's turn that into, now how do you communicate that? So to a group of people or to a team that you're working with, whether it's your office or a larger group of people in our profession, is there something that you found that helps you to communicate more effectively to lead your teams? Or what would be a piece of advice you'd give other leaders on how to effectively communicate to their teams a little bit better?
Yeah, I think maybe it's just the way that I'm wired, but all the learning that I've done, and all the a lot of energy put into kind of all that effort, like school. I think that it had to be for something. There had to be purpose, and so I think that if you can get people to see your vision, if your vision makes sense, right? In one of our critical reasoning class, I really liked how an argument or a position could be logical, but it may not be sound, in the sense that the premises may not be correct for it to be. It has to be sound when all premises are correct. And so you want to have a sound vision. You want to have something that makes sense, that people can buy into and agree with. And then from there, you start to build then how you get there. Because if there's no vision, just because there's, let's talk about on a board, we want to be able to do good things. We're like, okay, what does that mean, right? What does good things mean? And what vision are we trying to achieve? And if there's a disagreement amongst the board members or your team about, what does taking care of the patient look like? What does, for the good of the patient look like? And if there's disagreement there, then you're doomed from the start. And so I think that there's a common language that has to be established when the vision is being set. And then from that common language, then you can communicate the rest of the direction, right? And then giving some creativity and space for the people to put their ideas to good work, right? But as long as they know where they're running to, the methodology of it can be very different, but it still allows the group to move together. And that's the beauty of teamwork, right? You have all these people thinking differently, coming from different perspectives, but if they know where they're headed, then you're kind of headed in the right direction most of the time.
I like that. Yeah. And I think it's always important. And that kind of moves to maybe the strategy of leadership, which is like, eyes to the sky. Where are you going to be 10 years down the road? And don't let the little things get to you. So I think that is and a hard thing to do. Like, do you think building that strategic thinking, do you think people are just born that way, or do you think it can be developed?
Ooh, I don't, that's a good question. My dad, who's no longer here, but kind of raised me thinking like a chess player. He was obsessed with chess, and he put me in in chess club when I was 5. And so I think a lot of my strategic thinking, I think of it in terms of chess. And I guess in my mind, if one can learn chess, then one could probably learn some strategic thinking. So I don't think that it's entirely kind of like it's a nature and no nurture kind of thing. But I do think it has to be practiced. It has to be flexed. And I think that I think you have to, lose some games. You have to kind of lose some strategy to be able to learn how to be more strategic. And, shout out to my dad again. I remember when I lost one of my first Taekwondo tournaments, and I was like so sad. I was like so used to winning. I was like, oh, silver, and I was so sad. And I thought he was going to scold me, but he sat down beside me. He's like, you got to learn how to lose. And I think there's so much to unpack there that could be worth another podcast. But I think that if you enter like a strategic negotiation or a debate and you lose brutally, that's okay, because you then can look back and be like, okay, like what could I have done differently? And you go back and lick your wounds a little bit, and then you come back stronger. But I do think strategy can be learned. I think that some people may naturally think more that way, but I don't think it's if you're not, if you're not adept at it now, I don't think that it's a lost cause. I think that it definitely can be flexed. And you do learn that when you're working with a team that works strategically, because you just kind of learn to pick up on some of those as you go. So
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
I think I guess I'm landing on it. I think it can be learned.
I love that. Yeah. And a loss is not the end. It's
Yeah.
what can you do better next time? What do you learn from that situation? So I guess going right back to your first leadership trait, which is like learning,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So,
Yep.
achieving and then therefore learning.
Yeah.
Is there another leadership trait that you think, that you feel yourself personally has been, I guess, like helped you through your career? Like if it's not learning, is there another one that you're like, this has been really helpful for me as a leader?
I think I don't know. I haven't really seen this show up on like a a leadership quiz or anything, but I think I was pondering on kind of as I was preparing for this podcast. I think I really appreciate excellence. Like I think that I love it when people around me are doing excellent work and I get to be part of it and see it. I am proud when I get to do excellent work. Like it's very satisfying, and even more when it's achieved as a group, right? And I think I would try to intentionally encourage people to lean into their strengths to be able to achieve excellent work. And I remember I wrote in a leadership paper for one of my classes, one of my MBA classes. My motto kind of at the time was to find good people, dream together, do good work, and shatter some ceilings, right? And it's fun, and I think that that's to the pursuit and sort of satisfaction of excellent work. I don't know what kind of leadership trait that falls into, but I think that there's like a when you hit a high quality of work and you see that and you can get to see the work of that, it's quite enjoyable for me. And I think the other thing too is that I think good leaders, like I mean, good leaders have probably had good leaders come before them, but I think also good leaders also know when it's time to pass the baton, right? And so excellent work might be that, like, if I'm part of something, I may not be the one to see it cross the line, but if I get to kind of look back and see that I was a part of it in some way, that's always rewarding, right? And so, yeah, I don't know what trait that is,
I love
but
that. Right.
yeah,
Yeah, no, that's great. That's great. Do you have, I guess, like to wrap things up, to help your other inspiring leaders out there break their glass ceilings?
yeah.
Are there any resources you'd recommend or any piece of advice you would have for someone who's maybe looking to hone their leadership skills a bit more?
Yeah, I mean, there's honestly there's so many good leadership courses out there, right? Academy has an excellent one that I was part of and really enjoyed. The Canadian Association of Optometrists put on a good one just last week, and I really like, a couple weeks ago, and I really liked. And Simon Sinek, Adam Grant, those are household names that really help to kind of reframe things to help you see things differently. But I think maybe more valuable, to make the resources more valuable is to pick like one or two things and just start practicing them. Like it doesn't have to be massive or kind of an instant overhaul. Just pick one or two things and just get at it, right? I think of in the words of our recently retired CEO that I know that you got to work with as well with the association. He always kind of said, you can't boil the ocean, right? But I guess kind of my response is like, well, you can warm up a cup of water, right? Like you can kind of start somewhere, right? And so, you just that's what you do. You get self-aware, you get humble, and you start somewhere. So if you go to a course, you pick one or two things. If you go to another course, pick another one or two things, and just keep trying somewhere. And then eventually, before you look back and you've walked forever, right? But you got to just start. And so lots of resources, but if you grab one, then apply it, right? And don't waste it.
Yep, just keep moving forward. Might have some obstacles in the way, but just
Yeah,
keep moving forward. I love
that's
that.
right. That's right.
Well, thank you so much for being here. It's just such a pleasure to talk to you and be inspired by your leadership journey. And everything that all the advice that you have for out there, I know that our listeners will find something of use in this podcast. So thank you so much.
Yeah, thanks for having me. And you all know where to find me, so ask me anytime.
And thank you, our listeners, to the AAO Leadership Podcast. If you like this episode, please like and subscribe. We will see you next month at the next one. Take care.